I spent $32,000 to fly my family to my wedding, but my parents used that money to take my sister's family on a Europe trip instead. They even texted me, "You're not worth seeing in a wedding dress." So, I posted pictures with VIP guests on Facebook, and an hour later, they lost it. Hi, Reddit. I'm 30 and just got married 3 weeks ago in Maui. My husband, Jake, and I spent over a year planning the wedding. It was meant to be small and special, just close friends and family. I was finally excited to have a day that was about me. But growing up, everything was always about my younger sister, Maddie. She was the favorite, the star of the family, and I was always in the background. My parents always gave her more attention, whether it was birthdays, holidays, or even school events. When I graduated college, they didn't come because they went to one of Maddie's cheer competitions instead. I thought it would change as we got older, but it didn't. I kept convincing myself they loved us both equally, just differently, but that illusion shattered completely around my wedding. Jake and I live in California, but we decided on a destination wedding in Maui because Hawaii meant a lot to us. I had saved for over 2 years, and Jake matched every dollar. We paid for nearly everything: accommodations, catering, the venue, and yes, even flying our families out. I spent over $32,000 of my own money on airfare and hotel bookings for my parents, Maddie, her husband Kyle, and their 2 kids. I arranged private rooms with ocean views, private shuttles from the airport, and even welcome baskets with handwritten notes and custom gifts. I wanted to do this right. I wanted them to feel special. I was finally going to be the center of attention for once. About 3 weeks before the wedding, I got a weird text from my mom. It was vague, something like, "We might need to talk about the trip. Something has come up." I called immediately, but she didn't pick up. When she finally did, she told me that Maddie and Kyle had an unexpected opportunity to travel to Europe for the summer, and my parents decided it was more important to spend time with them. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. I asked, "What about the wedding? What about the $32,000 worth of travel expenses?" My mom said they'd already changed the plane tickets to Europe. She didn't even offer to pay back the money. She just said it would be a better use of their time and memories to go to Europe with Maddie's family. Then came the dagger, the text that destroyed any last shred of hope I had about my parents ever truly valuing me. It read, "You're not worth seeing in a wedding dress." I froze. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hand shook so hard I dropped my phone. I reread it 10 times, hoping I misunderstood, but I hadn't. That was exactly what they meant. Jake tried to comfort me, but I felt numb. I had paid for them. I had bent over backward my whole life trying to earn their approval, only to be cast aside like I didn't matter, again. My parents didn't call. Maddie didn't even text me. Nothing. I was devastated, embarrassed, and humiliated. But I wasn't going to let it ruin our day. I called my best friend, Karina, who has always been more of a sister than Maddie ever was. She told me to hold my head high and make the wedding beautiful anyway. She even offered to fly out early and help me coordinate everything. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't cancel a thing. I doubled down. I filled the vacant rooms with people who had shown me unconditional support: Jake's cousins, my old college roommates, my mentor from a previous job, and even a few of our elderly neighbors who had never been to Hawaii in their lives. And I told every one of them the truth. I didn't want sympathy. I wanted honesty and love. And I finally got that, from people who genuinely cared. Our wedding day was everything I dreamed it would be. The ceremony took place on a cliffside overlooking the ocean at sunset. Jake cried when I walked down the aisle. Karina gave a tearful, heartfelt speech about how family isn't always blood. And after the first dance, I took a moment, walked aside, and posted a single photo to Facebook. It was me in my wedding dress, standing with Jake, surrounded by the people who showed up for me. I captioned it, "Thankful for the real VIPs who made it to our day. Blood didn't define this family, loyalty did." Within an hour, the post exploded. My mom texted, asking why I was trying to shame them publicly. She said it was hurtful and petty to imply they abandoned me. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She had shown the world who she was. I simply let her words speak for themselves. Then Maddie chimed in. She commented something like, "Maybe if you weren't always so dramatic, people would actually want to celebrate you." Karina clapped back immediately with, "Maybe if you weren't so selfish, your sister wouldn't have to build a wedding guest list from scratch after you all ditched her for a vacation. Stay in Europe." I didn't delete a thing. Over the next 2 days, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years started messaging me. My dad's brother from Seattle called and apologized for not knowing what I had gone through. My aunt from New Jersey commented publicly, saying she was ashamed of my parents' behavior and that I deserved so much better. The truth was finally out. I was no longer hiding behind a mask of pretending everything was fine, and it felt liberating. But the most surprising message came from my grandmother, my mom's mom. She had never been particularly warm to me growing up, but her message broke the pattern. She wrote, "I didn't raise your mother to treat her children like that. I'm sorry I never spoke up before. You were beautiful. I wish I had been there." I cried reading that, not because it fixed everything, but because for the first time, someone from that side of the family acknowledged the truth. Jake and I spent the rest of our honeymoon in bliss. I let go of the bitterness, the disappointment, and the craving for my parents' approval. I had grieved that version of my family long enough. And then, right as we were boarding our flight home, I got a call from my dad. I didn't pick up. He left a voicemail, "We need to talk. You've made this a bigger mess than it needed to be. Call us when you've calmed down." I played it twice, handed Jake the phone, and laughed. The man couldn't even pretend to apologize. It wasn't about what they did, it was about how I responded. How dare I make their betrayal visible? Well, I did, and I wasn't going to back down. When we got home, Jake and I opened the wedding album we had started building. On the cover, I wrote, "Chosen family forever." And on the first page, that Facebook photo, the one where I finally stopped trying to fit into someone else's story, and started writing my own. Jake and I returned home to California and settled into newlywed life, but a shadow still hung over us. The aftermath of my wedding post had spread further than I anticipated. Extended family I hadn't spoken to in years were calling and messaging me. Some offered love and support, others tried to play peacemaker. But my parents, they doubled down. 3 days after we landed, I received a long email from my mom titled, "We deserve an apology too." I almost didn't open it, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a 4-paragraph justification of their actions. She said Maddie's Europe trip had been a rare opportunity for family bonding, and I should have understood. She claimed I embarrassed them in front of everyone by airing private matters online. She ended the email with a line that felt like a punch to the chest. "You have always been too sensitive, and this stunt proves it." That's when it clicked. There was never going to be an apology, not a real one, not a single moment of accountability. I wasn't going to get closure through them. So, I decided to write a letter of my own, not to send, but to read aloud to myself, a goodbye letter to the fantasy of the parents I always wished I had. I cried through it, but I felt lighter afterward. Jake encouraged me to block them, and for the first time, I didn't feel guilty doing it. I blocked my mom, my dad, Maddie, and Kyle. I didn't need to argue anymore. I didn't need to beg for understanding or explain why I was hurt. If they couldn't understand by now, they never would. But that wasn't the end. 2 weeks later, I received a large envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a thick packet of papers, legal documents. My parents were threatening to sue me for defamation. Yes, you read that right. Apparently, Maddie's husband, Kyle, had been in talks to launch a new business, and several of his potential investors backed out after seeing the Facebook post and the comment section that followed. My post, they claimed, had damaged the family's reputation and had directly interfered with professional opportunities. It was absurd, but also terrifying. I immediately contacted an attorney. Luckily, Jake's cousin is a corporate lawyer, and he connected us with someone experienced in personal disputes and social media law. After a short consultation, our attorney assured us we had nothing to worry about. My post was factual, non-defamatory, and constitutionally protected. They had no case. Still, the fact that they would even try to drag me into court proved how far they were willing to go to punish me for exposing their actions. Karina, ever my ride or die, posted a new comment under the wedding photo. "When your enemies can't attack your truth, they'll try to attack your voice. Stay loud, sis." That comment went viral. Again, more messages poured in, some from strangers who'd seen my story reposted on wedding blogs and TikTok. Turns out, people resonate with truth, with someone saying, "This is what it's like to be overlooked, to be forgotten, to be told your joy doesn't matter." I was flooded with love. A few people even sent me stories of their own toxic family dynamics, thanking me for showing them it's okay to walk away. But there was one message that stood out. It was from my cousin Lindsay, my dad's sister's daughter. We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade, but she wrote me a long, Emotional message saying she had gone no contact with my parents years ago after they shamed her for coming out. She said my post gave her the strength to finally speak up publicly. She had spent years thinking she was the problem, too sensitive, too difficult, too much. I cried reading that, not out of sadness, but out of validation, the kind I had craved for years and never received from the people who were supposed to love me first. Meanwhile, Jake and I were planning a small post-wedding gathering for our chosen family, the people who did show up. We called it our VIP reunion. Everyone who had been at the wedding was invited, no formal clothes, no pressure, just love. The night of the dinner, Karina gave me a small gift box. Inside was a gold pendant engraved with 2 words. Worth it. I hugged her so tight I almost knocked over the wine. That night, I stood up to thank everyone and shared something I hadn't said out loud yet. I told them I had let go of the hope that my parents would ever see me. Not because I hated them, but because I finally loved myself enough to stop shrinking for them. It felt like the true end to my wedding. Not the ceremony, not the dress. But that dinner, that table full of real, messy, imperfect people who chose to show up. That was my happily ever after. I never responded to my parents again. They eventually dropped their threat of legal action, probably after realizing how ridiculous it was. I heard through a distant cousin that Maddie was furious I hadn't come crawling back, that I'd twisted everything to make myself the victim, but I wasn't trying to get pity. I was just done faking like everything was okay. Last week, I printed out our wedding photo, the same one I posted on Facebook. I put it in a frame and placed it above the fireplace in our living room. It reminds me that even if your own family walks away, you can still create something amazing. This morning, Jake saw the photo and smiled. He said, "That's the day you finally became the bride and the star of your own story." And for the first time in my life, I actually believed it.